Good morning. My name is Buxton Yet, Vice President of Marketing Promotion for Supima, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the third day of the Supima Harvest Symposium. Yesterday, we focused on Supima processing with virtual visits to a Supima cotton gin, as well as a virtual visit to the classing office in Visalia, California. After that, we had a panel on traceability and authenticity. So we'll start off today with an in-depth discussion of Supima's fiber properties, its length, its strength, its fineness, and how those translate to softness, durability, and lasting color. Marc Lewkowitz, our President and CEO, is going to lead that discussion. Marc is going to share some fun history about Supima as well along the way. So it's now my pleasure to introduce to you Marc Lewkowitz to lead this discussion. Marc?
Thank you, Buxton. I appreciate the introduction, and it's great to be here with all of you today. These are challenging times, and taking this symposium into a virtual format as opposed to last year's in-person event is a little bit different, but it also provides us a great opportunity to connect with more of you than we were able to do in person last year. We are excited to be able to tell our story and share some of the information relative to what Supima is, what makes it unique as a fiber, and the characteristics that set it apart. Today, I'm going to take an opportunity to share some of those Supima 101 talking points and get into a little bit more of the history as well as some of the details that make the fiber so unique. To begin with, the fiber was originally believed to have been discovered by Christopher Columbus. At that time, in the early 1400s, he found it in the Caribbean and identified it as tree wool. The name was applied basically because these were trees that looked like they had sheep growing in them. And those were the cotton bolls at the time. He took that back to Europe, and from there we have a long history of cotton in the textile world. From those early discoveries, that cotton made its way to the US and was originally traditionally grown on the barrier islands off the eastern coast of the US between North Carolina and Florida. Those islands were known as the Sea Islands, and that's where the original long fiber name Sea Island cotton came from. If you look at the beginnings of the cotton plantation of these varieties in the US, that dates back to 1621 in Virginia, and it wasn't until the 1700s when the cotton started moving southward, and eventually it stopped being grown in the southeastern island range just because of pest pressures. That fiber then made its way back into the US to be grown in Arizona, where the United States Department of Agriculture developed the species just southeast of Phoenix, Arizona, in a town called Zacatón. On the land they were growing it on, they were using it from the Indians that were working with them in collaboration of doing the breeding trials. Those Indians are called the Pima Indians, and in recognition of the Indians allowing the USDA to use the land, the USDA asked if the Indians would be willing to allow their name to be associated with a fiber, and that's where the name Supima Cotton came from. So Supima Cotton developed a quick following in terms of its quality and uniqueness and fiber characteristics, and that name became a well-known, recognized label for premium extra long staple cotton around the world. Today, if you look at the cottons that are grown around the world, approximately 97%, known as upland cottons, are grown all around the world. ELS cottons, which are derivatives of the original ELS cotton varieties, such as American Pima or some of the ELS cottons in Egypt, or Peruvian Pima, or Australian Pima, or Israeli Pima, they in total only account for about 3% of the cottons grown in the world. In the US alone, 3% of the cotton on an annual basis, which can vary somewhere between 2 and potentially 6%, is ELS cotton. Most of the cotton in the US also is regular upland cotton. The Pima story really starts back in the early 1900s, and the first cultivar was released in 1911. And you can see here some of the early images of the farmers, the breeders, and you can see the size of those cotton plants. ELS cotton is a different species of cotton than upland cotton. It grows vigorously. It's a desert xerophyte type of plant, so it uses water sparingly. When we look at where the cotton is grown, as I mentioned earlier, it's a xerophyte, so it likes dry climates. So hence, all American Pima is grown in the west and southwestern states of California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. And these are basically desert environments where rainfall is limited. In the lower areas, rainfall is much more abundant up in the higher mountain areas where the water is collected and then used to refill the aquifers and then supply the water throughout the season through the water distribution systems that are available to the grower communities as well as the residential communities. So one of the things that sets American Pima separate from regular cotton is the color of the flower. It's often referred to as the Rose of Texas, and it's a yellow flower which has this beautiful red inside. And upland cotton, by comparison, is a white flower. And that also speaks to the slight differences you see in the color of the fiber. Upland cotton tends to be a much more white color, whereas ELS cottons tend to be a little bit creamier, a little bit richer looking in color. So here you can see one of those images of what a Supima cotton boll looks like. It's unique because it's trilobal. Most upland cotton has 5 lobes in it, and the boll itself is going to be a little bit smaller, where the focus of the plant is on producing the quality of fiber, and the energy goes into that as opposed to creating more seeds and a bigger boll. When you look at the fiber itself, when it's pulled away from the seed after it's ginned, or if you're in the field pulling the fiber out individually from the boll, you can see the length difference between Supima cotton, which you'll see here on the left in the slide, and upland cotton on the right. It's about 35% longer, it's about 45% stronger, and those characteristics lend themselves really well to creating some really unique different yarns and fabrics that have a tactile difference and performance characteristics difference in terms of strength and durability and lifespan for those products that are made with Supima cotton. Also here in the US, we have a regular definition for American Pima cotton, and there's 3 laws that apply to it. Number 1, it has to be ginned on a roller gin, which is a different type of gin. A roller gin is separate from a saw gin because it is much gentler, it's slower, it's a little bit more expensive to run, but it protects the quality of the fiber because it doesn't have to tear the fiber away from the seed, because the adhesion point for ELS cotton is much lower from the fiber to the seed than it is for upland cotton and the seed. You also have to have a fiber length that is 1 inch and 3/8 and longer, and it also has to be of the Gossypium barbadense species or a hybrid thereof. So those 3 things are a requirement for it to be able to be called a Pima here in the USA. The USDA additionally provides an amazing service which is unique in the world because they class each and every single bale of cotton, not only Pima but all US cotton as well, that's grown in the US on an annual basis. They have standard boxes that they have preserved in refrigerated storage in a bank vault in Memphis, Tennessee, and those are the guide boxes that create the guide boxes that are used for reference for merchants and textile manufacturers the year round every single year. Those boxes are used as the standards not only here in the US, but they're shipped internationally to all the different industry participants such that they have a standard reference of frame that they can use to qualify what American Pima cotton is. So when we talk about cotton and we talk about Supima, it's often referred to as the world's finest cottons or the cashmere of cottons, because not only is the quality unique, the way it's grown is unique, the care that's applied to the production system of the cotton here, the classification systems, the harvesting, the maintenance of movement of cotton, the warehousing of the cotton, all of those programs and steps in the supply chain are highly regulated and controlled to make sure that we have the most consistent, most reliable, and most consistently available supply of extra long staple cotton in the world. Supima is also currently the largest ELS produced cotton in the world for any single country. So it is available year-round to all of our partners to produce the products that our brand partners choose to use the cotton in. It benefits from 3 main characteristics: a vibrance of color because of the shape of the fiber with its hollow core. It takes dye well into the center of the fiber, thereby creating a luster and natural saturation within the fiber. It has strength characteristics that make it more durable, longer lasting, that you can have a product where you buy less volume, but you have a more consistent product that you have a longer life out of. And then you have this incredible soft hand feel that you get to appreciate once a finished product is made, where the product just feels great and it becomes a favorite product in your drawer, if a t-shirt or your favorite towel that you want to use. The Supima brand started in 1954, but before we even had a brand, the identity of protecting the origin of the American-grown Pima cotton was created by a group of growers out of the El Paso region in Texas. In doing so, they came up with the name of Superior Pima to protect the authenticity of American-grown and developed and bred cotton, as well as the practices that go into growing that cotton because they were unique and continue to be unique and evolve as time goes on. So as you can see from this slide, you've also seen the evolution of our logo through time. From the original Supima angular script to more of a block, then to a real script with the cotton boll in the middle, to our current evolution that we started about 6 years ago of a block letter with the world's finest cottons taking a little bit more prominent and pronounced position in that design. We've been really happy with the development of that. It's worked well in terms of being able to message. It works well in terms of integrating into heat transfers or embroidered tags that are sewn into garments or onto sheets. It's easier to message. The name is clear and easy to read, so it's served a lot of purposes that I think have helped the Supima brand reach and penetrate more into the awareness within the consumer space. So the world's finest cottons, talking about authenticity really gets to the crux of what we do and why we're here. We stand for the cotton, we stand for the farming practices of the growers, we stand for the partnerships that we've developed through the textile supply chain from the spinner to the knitter and the weaver to the brand retail partner. It's that collaborative partnership effort that really inures back into a story about authenticity. But we've also taken it a step further. And through that, we have taken steps over the last 3 years that have really elevated that story. And in addition, one of the things that we've been working on for 12 years is trying to find a way to have true authenticity back to the fiber. And to do that, we've partnered with a company called Oratane. Oratane is a forensic sciences company based out of New Zealand, and they enable a very unique opportunity to use Mother Nature itself to authenticate the fiber based on the trace elements and some isotopes that the fiber picks up while it's growing. And as that fiber grows, these elements are picked up in unique combinations that make them uniquely identifiable to the ground and the environment that they were grown in. So across all American Pima, we have the ability to say, we can check product in the fiber stage, we can check product in the yarn stage, we can check it in a fabric stage, or even in a finished product, and there's no marker required, no additional processing required. It's innately inured through Mother Nature directly in the fiber, which gives us tremendous insight into the supply chain and able to see the authenticity of that product. So authenticity has become a cornerstone for American Pima, and as important as authenticity is, it also helps our brand partners, our manufacturer partners, to talk about the sustainability aspects of the fiber, because if you can't prove authenticity, you don't know much about the sustainability of that fiber, how it was grown, where it was grown, what was put into the growing environment, what were the steps that were taken to manage the crop throughout that whole process. So it's a really fundamental core principle of Supima cotton, having the ability to refer back to the authenticity of the fiber, because it is the one unique thing that's inherent through the entire supply chain from the very beginning all the way through to the finished product. Supima cotton is the superior cotton, and we are in a fortunate position to have a lot of positives that work in favor of this amazing cotton, from the quality characteristics to the authenticity to the best farming practices that our growers impart, to an amazing partnership and supply chain. It is one of the most responsible fibers that you can integrate into your supply chain. I now look forward to working with Buxton to answer some of your questions that you may have relative to this presentation on Supima 101, and we'll proceed with those for those questions that have come in. Buxton, you may have some already.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mark, for the great presentation, providing that interesting background on Supima as well as details on its fiber qualities. I do have a number of questions that we've gotten from our viewers. I think, I'll just start off. You gave a lot of information about, Supima as a distinct variety, different from regular cotton. One term that came up that I think some might not be familiar with is xerophyte. If you can explain that for our viewers.
Yeah, xerophyte is an agronomic term to describe a plant that is drought tolerant. It has a natural propensity for being able to survive in environments that have less water, such as a desert environment. So that is what the xerophyte really alludes to, is the ability for a plant to be better at managing and utilizing water usage.
So
it's a good question.
No, I thought so as well. So another question, and this goes, I think, in the direction of Supima qualities. How is it that you can use Supima cotton in such different products like jeans, socks, as well as in fine shirting or fine sheeting? Is some Supima thicker than other Supima?
Interesting question. So when you take these fibers to spin the yarn, it's these natural, unique characteristics between the different fibers that help bind that fiber bundle together and give it the strength in the yarn. So yes, there are differences in Supima in general, even between fibers, but it's a very uniform and cohesive lot of cotton when you look at the broad spectrum of cotton.
No, that's right, Mark. In a way, the Supima quality is extremely uniform and consistent. And a lot of the, my take on the question was, a lot of the differences they see are not driven by the fiber, but by the yarn count that is spun with the cotton that you have. You might be doing 30s for a t-shirt or 80s two-ply for shirting, or 16s for denim, and that's really what makes it thick. It isn't the thickness of the fiber per se, it's the yarn count that's driving that, whether it's finer or coarser.
And it's a fabric construction that makes
right.
a complete difference too. So you have the twist on the yarn. If you have a high twist, it gives it a drier hand feel. If you've mercerized the yarn, if you've gassed the yarn, it all provides different characteristics as well.
So next question, what is the difference between Supima cotton and Pima cotton?
It's a good question. And it's an interesting question because, as I mentioned before, the Pima name comes from the Pima Indians in Sacaton, Arizona, where the fiber was originally bred by the United States Department of Agriculture. But more generically, the Pima name is a name that is associated with ELS cotton in general, and it's also one that's now within the industry used in a way to kind of differentiate and identify products that are Pima-like. So Pima name by itself isn't a validation that there is even an ELS cotton in it.
That's great that you don't, if something is labeled Pima, you don't actually know that there's ELS content, whereas something that is labeled as Supima, that's something that we validate that it is 100% ELS cotton. That is the cotton content in the product.
That's right. All American Pima and Supima branded cotton is 100% American grown U.S. Pima cotton.
Fantastic. Now, a great follow-on to that question is the following. Tell me the difference between Supima cotton and Egyptian cotton.
So the Egyptian cotton name is like saying U.S. cotton. Egyptian refers to a country. And not all cotton grown in Egypt is the same quality, just as the same way not all cotton grown in the USA is the same quality. Supima represents exclusively the 100% American-grown ELS cotton that's grown here in the US, but it's still part of US cotton. In Egypt, most of the cotton they grow is upland cotton, but they do grow some exclusive varieties that are ELS qualities that are grown in Egypt. Those are like the Giza 94, which is a quasi-ELS cotton, and they've also grown some 87, and they used to grow varieties like the Giza 45 or the 72 or the 76, which were unique varieties that they would grow in very, very limited quantities. So when you hear the name Egyptian cotton, people often think it means quality. Unfortunately, it doesn't mean quality, and unfortunately, it doesn't even authenticate that it's cotton from Egypt. Like the Pima name, it is one generic name that has been misused and mislabeled and misbranded again within the textile industry.
No, and I thought it was great to have these both come in from different viewers, because I think they're different questions, but they both point to the value and importance of the licensing program and the defense of the Supima trademark out there in the marketplace, to make sure to defend it, to make sure it maintains its integrity and clearly stands for better product made with ELS cotton out there, that consumers can count on that and brands can count on it when they source it.
I agree, Buxton. It is a night and day difference, between a Supima branded product and the licensing program and the authenticity that we have to support and stand behind it, versus just a generic label that you can slap on anything. And whether that's Egyptian cotton or Pima, we've seen challenges in the marketplace, where things have fallen on their face when they were thought to be something and they're not. The same has happened with organic recently. And those are not good things for Supima or the cotton industry. We hate to see those issues arise. And unfortunately, those issues are out there and we'll probably continue to see them. And that's why we as an organization fight so hard to work with our partners to validate supply chains, to authenticate the authenticity of the fiber through the supply chain. And that's why Supima is really the only branded cotton mark in the marketplace that the consumer can look to for authenticity and trust.
No, thanks, Mark. Great points. And I've got a long list of questions left, but we're limited on our time. I know we need to get moving with our program. So thank you for the excellent presentation with some background on Supima as well as the fiber qualities. I'll just mention to our audience that we'll try to answer your questions in the chat, and that if we don't do it during these actual sessions, that we'll do it in time to follow. So we will get back to you, and you will be getting a lot of additional information on Supima and its qualities. So thanks again, Mark, for the great presentation and the nice discussion afterwards too.
Well, thank you, Buxton. It's always interesting to hear these questions and have the opportunity to follow up such that we can provide more insight, as to those relevant questions. We get to hear a lot of them, and we get to hear a lot of similar ones. So it's one that we are always ready to answer. If you in the audience out there ever have any follow-up questions, and as Buxton noted, any that we have already received we'll respond to. But in the future, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're here to support you, and we look forward to being able to inform you with answers to the questions that you may have relevant to Supima or cotton in general. And we look forward to working on that. Now, before we continue, I'd like to thank Buxton for those assistance with answering those questions. And now we're going to pass it over to Buxton, because he's going to continue on with some of the marketing activities and how we work collaboratively with our brand partners in terms of marketing messaging and marketing activities. So with that, thank you. Look forward to seeing you again. Be well, and I'll pass it over to Buxton now. Thank you very much.